recording. And I want to officially welcome everybody that you have joined us today on Friday at 3 o'clock. It's maybe not the best time, but I'm still glad that we are fantastic people here. Welcome. This dialogue is organized on behalf of Path to Integrity, which is a Horizon 2020 finance project. Since January last year, we have been developing material for formal and informal research integrity learning. And if you would like to learn more about us, very happy to give you more information about us. So, but today we're not here in order to talk about path integrity. We're here to talk about a very interesting and fascinating topic with two amazing and wonderful speakers. And I'm very happy that you accepted to be here today with us. And I'm starting not with the woman, because first it's this time a man who's going to speak. This is our
respecting
wonderful
age instead of
it's the age. Okay, age discrimination. Happy positive discrimination. You're always so polite, Dick. So Dick Bourgois-Doyle, he is joining us from Canada. Welcome, Dick. Before you accepted your wonderful new job as the chair of our very important advisory board of the Path Integrity Project. And also here is with you your vice chair, Arja from Finland. You were the Secretary General of the National Research Council of Canada. And if I may add something personal here, whenever we have questions on research integrity, on how to teach it or whatever, Dick is always there for us. And I wanted to thank you also now at this moment for your availability. And Dick, I would love to leave you the floor now, and we'll then later come back to Sandra. But for now, the floor is yours, Dick.
Okay, I have a few slides. Oops. Guess I'll share the screen first. Can everybody see this now?
Nothing. No, we can see you.
No.
I can help you if you want me to share.
Yep. Maybe you have to approve me sharing the screen.
No.
Oh.
No, but I'm happy. I have your presentation here with me, so I'm happy to help out. Wait a second, please. Yeah.
We have a problem. I don't need them. It was.
Yeah, all good. I have it. Just give me a second.
It's visible now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now it is, Dick. Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Katerina and Sandra for joining us and taking part in this series. The main task, or the main purpose of our session this morning, is to discuss the report on research integrity governance that Sandra and her colleagues have prepared. I thought I would just speak in a preamble way, and I'll try and be terse, just to mainly attest to my personal view that this is not only an important issue, but maybe the time is right to consider the issues that are raised by the paper. Research integrity governance has a big impact on researchers, administrators, science policy people. Also, I think it cuts to the core of our capacity to collaborate and translate benefits into society. I wanted to speak a bit in this vein about my personal experience prior to joining the Path to Integrity project, but of course, also maybe say a few words about how this point that I'm making about the time being right also relates to the Path to Integrity process or project and how we've experienced that. So just a few words about my prior life. And actually, I shouldn't say that anything I say here. I retired a couple of times now, but in 2016, 2018 from the National Research Council of Canada. So what I'm saying here is very much my personal perspective is rather than something on behalf of the organization. The NRC, just to explain, is a federal government organization in Canada. Its name implies to people that we may be a funder of like university and medical research, but in fact, it is a research performing organization with laboratories across the country and very active in support to the private sector research. We deal with, my former colleagues deal with some 10,000 Canadian companies every year. And the other thing that's interesting or relevant with respect to the NRC is it's a separate corporation, separate from the, it's a federally owned entity, but it is separate from the federal government in that it operates like a private corporation. So we had our own unique policies, and in my various roles, Director of Ethics, Director of Governance, and ultimately Secretary General of the organization, I was in charge of that sort of stuff, and it also embraced research integrity policies in all their manifestations. The paper that Ms. Bendiscioli has tabled here today references consultations with Canadian research integrity experts, notably Susan Zimmerman, who's the Executive Director of Canada's Secretariat on Responsible Conduct of Research, a body that's been around, I think, for a decade now. It's an entity that brings together the three major research funding agencies, the agencies that fund university and medical research in Canada. And they set up a framework and policy foundation for research integrity in the people in the organizations that people in organizations that receive funding from those three agencies. So it was a policy for university and medical research, did not implicate the federal government agencies like mine. And so I think that experience dominates my thoughts when I think about the pros and cons of centralization of policies, because we operated in two senses independent in our research integrity policy, both from this national entity that had a framework for the universities and medical research, but also even separate from our own federal government. The positive side of that context was a bit of latitude to innovate, and as the map here shows all our different manifestations across the country, and our interactions with the private sector allowed us to construct research integrity policies that would implicate a much bigger network than might be envisioned by other policies. Also, I appreciated the ability to write a research integrity policy that was integrated and adapted and tweaked to be very clear, well, to the extent I could be clear with policy, internally as part of our code of conduct in it. And so it was, of course, intertwined with human ethics, animal care, but we also intertwined it with workplace harassment and other activities. So that was the positive side of it. The not so positive was an awkwardness in trying to collaborate with other parties that had their own research integrity policies, and even a little bit of conflict at time to time when we had investigations that involved researchers from two different institutions, and that we stumbled our way toward paradigm where we negotiated agreements on when we had large institutional collaborations and that. But I always aspired for something better, and within the federal government, I advocated for many years to develop a federal policy that would govern federal departments and agencies and my organization that was coherent with the one for the universities. And anyways, I didn't succeed in that. Trying to push from the bottom up to get attention. And I was always cognizant that nothing seemed to happen in the research integrity environment until there was some sort of scandal. And typically those scandals would fall on individuals or individual institutions. But something happened independent of anything I did. About 10 years ago, science and research integrity became intertwined with climate change and other science issues in Canada. And it amuses some of my friends in other countries to know that science, research integrity and science integrity became a national issue in Canada. And there was protests in the streets and actually, yeah, I remember my daughter was on Parliament Hill. I saw her on TV one day with a coffin for science integrity. It was kind of a little surreal, but really, politics was intertwined with it, but also the ability of federal scientists to speak their truths on issues like climate change were underpinning it. So that actually played a role, and I don't know if it's been quantified, but a significant role in the change of government in 2015. One of the things the new government did was appoint a national science advisor, and she was charged with developing science integrity policy for the federal government. And they negotiated an agreement with the unions on it, and that comprehensive policy was exuded in 2017. And it's more of a framework, and it's setting down the requirements for a policy in these organizations, but it did bring things to a much greater coherence. And as much as I love the effort I put into writing all our policies and the things I described a few seconds ago, they were jettisoned in favor of the new national policy or federal policy. And I had to agree that they made the right decision. But I also knew, and one of the things by this point, I was close to the sidelines, I sort of bemoaned the embedded perspective of just on training and education on the researchers. It was just training the researchers on what the policy and the processes are. And my exposure to other groups, certainly the World Conference on Research Integrity, which has thought these issues through in depth for many years now, we realized that there was another layer of considerations. An adequate research integrity environment was the broader, what some call the research integrity culture. So that's what attracted me to participation in the research, the Path to Integrity project. And just, I know a lot of people that are here are well aware of what Path to Integrity is, but just for others, it's a 3-year project funded by the EU Horizon 2020 program, and it's charged specifically with developing educational materials to build a research integrity culture in Europe. So we're about 2 years into it. The project has sought to fulfill its mandate with tools and research in educational research around things like rotary role-playing, dialogue, and promotional role models in all the different training formats. And it also embraces high school students and undergraduates, as well as the active researchers in the education ambitions. I read that we started out with 8 partners in 5 European countries. I hope that number is correct. But anyways, the thing that's impressed me as a member of the advisory board is how they've expanded the family of Path to Integrity over those 2 years with tiered relationships and networks that link to other countries around the world. The people in the Path to Integrity family are education experts, I believe, for the most part, but they're also people involved in policy and the kinds of practices and measuring the quality of the program and the societal impact of the science and how to foster that culture of research integrity. Yeah, we know the term research integrity in an academic environment as being research that's conducted in a responsible way, and how to do that, the research methods for professional and institutional standards. But like I said, over the last decade, this is something I've learned from my friends in the Path to Integrity project, that the the research in this area, the educational research on research integrity, found that there are a lot of weaknesses in the past approaches of simply the unidirectional information transfer and the question and answer evaluations and getting people to recite rules and policies. So the pedagogy that requires active involvement of learners in modes that get them to reflect, and of course dialogue, have deeper and more enduring impacts on both the learner and the research environment. So these are things I learned as a non-education expert on the sidelines of Path to Integrity. Our early feedback in the first year or so from different exercises and testing out our product or our education tools. Initially, the Path to Integrity focused on like I said, the rotary role playing and dialogical experiences in the classroom. And they were things like storytelling tools and learning cards that were crafted to be used and evaluated in classroom settings. And they had to have skilled trainers and teachers on site to test these things out. So one of the, coming back to what I was talking about, the broader research integrity culture and environment having an impact on research integrity within institutions and as practiced by individuals, I was struck by one of the early findings that suggested that the secondary school students and the undergraduates, people who hadn't sort of committed to a career path in science, were more interested not in learning new skills relevant to science and scientific research careers, as they were between the linkages between science and research integrity and good science and current issues of societal concern. So we have current issues of societal concern now. And when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, those factors were highlighted like so many other features of our lives. And the pandemic did, of course, have an impact on the Path to Integrity project. I believe they can be categorized in two ways. One was the suspension of classes, school classes across Europe, of course, disrupted plans for in-class evaluations of the P2I products. And then the social context amplified the importance of, I believe, of the P2I ambition to buttress the integrity of research and thereby increase public confidence in scientific and other academic knowledge, which are, of course, key to trying to combat the COVID virus. A particular opportunity manifested, I believe it was in April, the hackathon, maybe I can be corrected on it. It was a three-day hackathon called EU versus the virus, which was a pan-European exercise promoted to connect civil society, innovators, and users to develop innovative tools to fight the coronavirus. They had lots of different activities. It's really actually quite inspiring if you ever get a chance to look at the output of the hackathon. But anyways, the members of the Path to Integrity team registered for the hackathon under the banner Trust in Science, building on the notion that I just alluded to a few seconds ago about how public trust in science is a function of how much they know about the various processes and policies that underpin and make sure and helps us make sure that of quality science and science that we can trust in. So that proposal was put forward as a project under the EU versus the virus hackathon as an effort to promote social cohesion and public support for the actions that were needed to combat the virus. And we offered the P2I resources and networks to that end. And we were looking for people that were expert in online tools and public communications and helping put together what we needed. And that was, back to the classroom disruption, an ability to communicate our products and get them into use in an online environment, more than just, posting the learning cards and that. And it all was intertwined in the notion of combating fake news and disinformation around the COVID-19 pandemic, which we are still living with today. And the numbers are unfortunately going back up again here in my hometown, quite dramatically. The Trust in Science project, again, I was I tried to contribute as much as I could, but anyways, it was, I felt more like an observer to some really brilliant people from various disciplines who came together during that 3-day hackathon to actually produce. Was a lot of creativity and enthusiasm there. And they came up with interactive resources that made use of the online tools. And ultimately earned, I believe it was a 3rd place award in the hackathon category we're in, which was good enough for us to encourage us to the next phase of the Path to Integrity project. And that has been, the team Path to Integrity have taken that experience and built on it, and now are going into another phase of interactive, sort of hybrid educational tools. It's really actually quite creative, and there's many people involved. And I think, as Katharina said at the outset, we encourage you, if you're not intimate with what we're doing, to check out the website, and I think you'll be impressed. That exercise, we're translating the products of research integrity to promote a research integrity culture, is also echoes what we're doing today in the dialogue series, and doing education online and working with people like Sandra to try and expand the networks that we reach and how we communicate our message. So that's all I got. But my 2 points that I hope that stuck out there was the experience in Canada, where we managed to move the centralization of research integrity policy up a notch as a function of public interest and public debate around climate change. And then our more recent experience with Path to Integrity, and how we have sort of moved into a new paradigm propelled by the COVID-19 context and public interest in that. So those are the 2 things that are sitting in my mind when I said at the outset, and as I'll say in closing, I think this is a good time an opportune time to consider the issues that Sandra is going to speak to. So thanks very much.
Thank you very, very much, Dick. That was, publicity poor. Thank you so much. And while you are, we can ask you questions later. So please ask, remember your questions or ask them in the chat, but only after now this, our amazing next speaker, who is Sandra. And I should have asked you how you pronounce the ST in Italian. Bendiscioli.
Bendiscioli.
Bendiscioli. Sorry, I should have done this before. Okay, Sandra Bendiscioli. She is Senior Program Officer of IMBO. And Sandra is an analyst of options to respond to emerging challenges in the European research system, and a facilitator of discussions about the implementation. Sandra, you're now currently focused on research integrity. And as mentioned by Dick before, you will now present to us the outcome of your study. The floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'll share my screen now. Let's see if I manage. Oh man, let's see what the stick is. I think. Can you see my screen now?
Perfect. Yeah, it's not the presentation modus, but as you wish.
Yeah. Is this now?
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so thanks a lot, Katharina, for the nice introduction, and also thanks a lot, Dick, for your introductory part, which really paved the way to discussing the governance of research integrity and the analysis and what we've done. What I was thinking also when I was preparing this, when Dick said, this is probably the right time to discuss how the systems, how we want to organize the systems to tackle research, to protect research integrity and to tackle research misconduct. I said, yes, we are in a very particular time, exceptional circumstances, the pandemic. And these circumstances are exceptional for everybody, but in particular for scientists. The competition and the pressure to produce results and publish quickly is super high, is much higher than usual. We have an unprecedented amount of data produced nearly every day. And there's an unprecedented amount or level of international scientific collaboration and data sharing. And this is all in order to tackle the pandemic, but for all of this to work, we need to be able to trust the data that it's produced. And I think that that's why it's important to make sure that the systems we have in place in all countries to ensure that scientists work properly and can work properly, also in circumstances exceptional like this one, it's important. And in the next 20 minutes or so, I will describe an analysis that we have done at EMBO on options for to obtain and to reach a more coordinated approach to research integrity in Europe. So this analysis was done before the pandemic, so there's nothing to do with the pandemic. But I think that the thinking about these issues, as I said, is important. And you know, some of the options that we've come up with might have some relevance now. And you can download the report from our website if you're interested to see the details. And I'll just say a few words about the organization I work for and why we decided to do this analysis. So EMBO is the European Molecular Biology Organization, is an international scientific organization for the life sciences. So our elected members are life scientists. They do research in many different institutes, in particular in Europe, but also outside of Europe. And we are a funder. We have different funding opportunities for researchers at different stages of their career. We're also a publisher. We publish 5 scientific journals with EMBO Press. And we also contribute to shaping policies for science and research at international level. We are funded by an intergovernmental organization that comprises 30 member states, which are mainly European states, but we also have collaborations outside of Europe. And the aim is to promote high quality research in the life sciences. And that means a research that is carried out following the highest scientific standards and with integrity responsibly. And that's why research integrity is at the core of all our activities. And we have a lot of initiatives and activities to promote research integrity, to prevent research misconduct. And the analysis that we did is within these efforts. This analysis was focused this time on the responses of institutions to violations of research integrity. And so why do we want to look into the systems which are established already in Europe? Because we find that there are 2 main challenges in the approaches to research integrity, in particular in Europe, but it's a bit of a general issue. And in Europe in particular, we have a lot of different systems that have been developed in the different countries. And to give you an idea, this is just, there are some examples of the systems, of the approaches taken. These approaches go from national frameworks established by law in the Nordic countries to voluntary actions at institutional level in other countries. And between these 2, there are a variety of systems with different structures and policies in place. And so the effect of this diversity is that there is an inconsistency in the way, in particular, allegations and investigations of research misconduct are handled in Europe. And in particular, there are difficulties in dealing with the cross-border cases of research misconduct. So cases where researchers have international collaborations or when they move from one country to the other. And since science is international and these international collaborations are increasingly, basically daily, this is really becoming a big problem. And the second challenge that we see in the systems is that derives from the concept which is at the basis of all the systems that we have in Europe, which is that the main responsibility for handling allegations and investigations of research misconduct resides primarily with research performing organizations. But unfortunately, 30 years after we started to discuss how to organize systems for research integrity, many institutes in Europe are still not prepared And in many places still there are no structures or policies in place, even when there are national frameworks. And we saw this because we actually organize also workshops for research integrity for our communities of EMBO members. And so we have visited many institutes in Europe. And we have come to terms with this lack of structures very often, which was something that we were surprised by. And so there's a fear of reputational damage, of exposing problems and allegations externally. And so very often allegations are not followed up. And there are problems with institutional committees who deal with allegations also that investigate research misconduct. There are, of course, strong conflict of interest because the committees are usually composed by internal members of institutions. And so, of course, there are a lot of personal conflicts of interest. There's a lack of expertise. There's a lack of time. These jobs are usually done on a voluntary basis. And there's a lack of experience because usually the members of these committees are just there ad hoc for one case maybe. And this brings to a lack of transparency often in how investigations are carried out. The conclusions are often unsatisfactory. And so the scientific record is either not corrected or with a strong delay. And so the main questions that we had when we started to do this analysis were maybe the system or the systems that we have in place in Europe have reached their limit. And what can we do to reach a more coordinated approach? And so we decided to put together a group of people. We involved 22 international experts, and some of them are people who are familiar with the project Path2, or involved in the Path2 Integrity project. And they gave us their input through discussions at a workshop that we organized in Heidelberg, where we are based, and also through structured interviews. We focused this work on Europe because we're an European organization, and also because it's we wanted to delimitate what we were looking at. And so what we did, we analyzed different options to reach a more coordinated approach. And the main option that we looked at was the establishment of a central permanent pan-European body. And we analyzed the different roles that such a body could have, the different structure that it could have, what kind of funding sources could support this body, and which could be the actors to implement such a body. And we look at the advantages and disadvantages of each of the options. So just to give you an idea of how we did the work, we, for the roles, or possible roles of this body, we identified the three possible roles: an investigatory, oversight, and advisory role. We looked at examples of equivalent structures at national level. And then we looked at the advantages and the disadvantages, and there are, of course, some open questions that I'll touch on at the end. And so if you look at the role, a possible investigatory role of such a body, this body would really address the problem of the limits of investigations done locally, because it would possibly carry out investigations on behalf of institutions. This could be research institutes and universities, but also funders or journals. But this body would not have and then it would draw reports for the institutions to decide on the possible consequences. And such a body would bring homogeneity and consistency in the way allegations and investigations are done, because it would work following international agreed procedures. And this is one of the open questions. What kind of procedures would such a body follow? And this is something that will, of course, need to be discussed. It would bring transparency because these procedures would be known to everybody. And it would be particularly useful for organizations, institutions, where that don't have any experience in investigations, but also where there's no support at national level, or also institutions where the risks of conflict of interest would be so high and would be recognized by the institutions, and so they would decide to delegate these investigations to an external body. It would be also particularly useful in cases of cross-border investigations because of its international status. And we know that, as I said before, cross-border investigations are becoming really problematic. It would be independent by local interests. And so it would, the danger of conflicts of interest would be much lower than with local committees, or maybe close to zero. And for this, it would be trusted by the research community more than local committees. And of course, it would be able, being a permanent body, would be able to build up expertise and professionalize investigations. Of course, it would also face some obstacles. And in particular, the reticence of institutions to delegate investigations to an external body, or also to expose their problems externally. Also, some countries might not recognize the authority of this body, and it might also, its possibility or its ability to access material might be limited by national laws on access to data, for instance. Some concerns were also voiced that such a body might lack familiarity with institutional structures, so it would have difficulties in understanding how things are done locally. And also another concern was that it would deprive institutions of a learning experience. So having to go through allegation and through an investigation gives institution an opportunity to rethink and revise policies. But if they delegated somebody to if they delegated it to an external body, they wouldn't learn and they wouldn't be able to change their policies. And also another concern is, of course, a lack of, this body could have a lack of capacity to be able to address or to respond to all the requests that might reach it. And I will get to the open questions later, because they apply also to the other roles that we looked at. So the second possible role for a central European body would be that of oversight. And we saw that in Canada, there's at least one oversight body as part of the tri-agency work framework. There are also in other European countries, in Belgium and the Netherlands, there are oversight bodies. And this body would not have would not investigate allegations, but it would review closed investigations done by institutions. And it would check that they have made sure that they have followed a certain internationally approved procedures. And it could give a certificate of quality, a stamp of quality of these investigations that have followed these approved procedures. And institutions could request, and it could be an incentive for institutions to have their investigations checked and stamped for quality by this body. Or funders could mandate that institutions have their investigations checked for quality by this body. It would foster consistency, because the procedures will probably be very similar. It would ensure quality, because these procedures would have been approved in advance. And again, it would be independent by local interest, so it would be so dangers of conflicts of interest would be lower than for local committees. And it would maintain the institute's autonomy, which is something which is an advantage over, for instance, an investigatory pan-European body. But among the advantages that were identified is that it would have actually no power to overturn an investigation in case it found it lacking. And this is a problem that, for instance, our Canadian colleague that we had contacted told us about their agencies as well. And also, if it managed to make an institution redo an investigation, this was, of course, would delay the conclusion of an investigation, which is already quite long. And also, such a body would not be very useful for institutions that don't have any structures in place, structures in place, and so they wouldn't probably know how to start or how to do a proper investigations to start with. The third role that we analyze would be that of a European central advisory body. So this body would not deal with investigations at all, but it could advise institutions in all the phases or support them in all the phases of investigation, from the beginning when an allegation comes in to when an allegation needs to, or the results of an investigation needs to be communicated outside. It could advise institutions on policies and structures to deal with research misconduct. And it could, for instance, maintain a list of experts, international experts, that could work on international or on institutional committees, such that the problem of conflicts of interest would be limited. And it would also, it could keep also a database of best practices and of examples of things done well. It would be very useful, of course, for institutions who don't have any national support or don't have any experience. But we had discussed that it could also complement national bodies. It could give a second opinion when national bodies are not sure, or it could collaborate with national bodies. And also, such a body would be able to give direct and personalized advice to an institution. And this would be an advantage, for example, also over guidelines. There are quite a number of guidelines out there for institutions to learn how to put together structures, but guidelines are for their nature generalized, they have a general nature, and having such a body would give a personalized advice. So this was an aspect that was valued by our working group. It would be independent, again, by local interests. And also another very useful feature would be that it could also broaden its scope, and it could also support institutions in how to prevent violations of research integrity. And it could, for instance, also, and I'll come to this at the end, also support institutions in organized training on research integrity. And the authority of the institutes would be maintained, so this would be more easily accepted. And also the country's desire or country's sovereignty rights on issues of research ethics would be maintained. Among the advantages that we found, it is that it might be seen duplicating efforts in countries where there are already advisory bodies, and sometimes it could also be seen in competition with them. If for example, it would give different advice to institutions. Again, the question of capacity is still there, like for the other bodies. And so the open questions that you saw on in the other tables as well are that, first of all, are things that would need to be discussed for such a central body to work. First of all, would it focus only on fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism, which are traditionally have been considered serious research misconduct, or would it also focus on other questionable or unacceptable research practices? We know that in Europe, the taxonomy of these practices is not homogeneous in all different countries. There's quite a consensus about what fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism is, but not really on the other practices. And so it would be important for this body to establish a taxonomy of what procedures go under which category. And this was discussed in the group, and we know that many people working in the area of research and integrity feel strongly for it, is that it would probably need to broaden the definition of research misconduct, which is sanctionable. And so to include more bad or questionable research practices in the definition. Other questions that would need to be addressed is how would existing national institutional codes be applied for this body to work. And we thought that the European Code of Conduct could be the beginning of discussions about maybe a new code, or maybe actually could, the European Code of Conduct could actually be used for this body as well. And as I said before, the working procedures in particular, if for an investigatory body, would have to be defined. And another question is, would such a body be focused on one specific discipline or on all disciplines? And all these questions would have to be discussed by the community. We didn't analyze all of them because they need a broader discussion. And we, as I said before, we also looked at what kind of possible structure this body could have, what kind of funding sources, how it could be funded, and which actors could implement such a body. And you can find the details. We analyzed the pros and cons of these options. You can find the details in the report. So to conclude, we concluded that a central pan-European body would bring definitely more homogeneity and consistency in particular in how allegations and investigations of research misconduct are handled, but also maybe on how research integrity in general is handled in Europe. It would be more accepted by institutions and by governments if this was an advisory body. And when we look at the structure, we saw that rather than establishing a new intergovernmental organization, it would be easier to create a new non-governmental organization or to affiliate such a body to one existing European international organization working already in the area of research integrity. And there are different organizations already active in Europe. We analyzed the pros and cons of some of them, if some of them could take up one of these roles. And of course, some of them, the ones that I put on the slide are all different kinds of organizations. Some of them are more focused on publications. Some of them are organizations of networks of research funding organizations or academies, but they all played a role in the past in shaping what we have now for research integrity in Europe. And they would probably have a role also in a body, in a European body for research integrity. Maybe in particular for if we had an investigatory body, it would be easier to start with a specific discipline and have a scientific organization focused on a specific discipline, do the experiment and see how it is, how it works, and then expand it to other disciplines. And European funders could have an important role. We know the funders have a lot of power. They have the power to attach conditions to grants. And they could have an important role in, for instance, in funding such a body or in mandating an institutions use a body in one of the roles that I discussed. DC, for instance, could have, of course, a very important role. So this is the end of my presentation. I hope I didn't go too fast. And so this was supposed to be a dialogue. So let's start a dialogue. And I'm not too sure how this was supposed to go, but I could maybe start with a question to our participants. And it's, I'm not too sure what your background is, and maybe I'll stop sharing the screen now. Okay. But the question would be, if you're researchers in institutions, or maybe you are directors of research institutions, so how would your institution react to the existence of a central body? And in which role do you think it would be more useful for your institution? Let's see if anybody picks up the question. No.
Can I maybe shortly to jump in? Sorry, I just had to ask someone to move from my room because there shouldn't be two talking people at the same time. So my name is Loretta. I'm from Lithuania. I'm representing the Office of the Ombudsperson for Academic Ethics, for Academic Integrity. And the main function that we do there is actually investigating cases. And maybe this is a very just some experience from a very small country. That we face with, and I would say that probably you might face the same issues, is to find the experts in that field. I mean, even in my country, if I want to look for the expert who speaks Lithuanian and he knows what the research integrity is and different kinds of practices, this is really huge, super huge challenge to find that person. So I do imagine that to build a pool of experts, and specifically when there is a different languages, I mean, use of different languages, that could be, I don't know, most probably, it can take more than 10 years to achieve this. As for the body, that's also very dependent because we had a lot of cases that are, that finish as unjustified, just because either there is no procedures, so you simply cannot state on the zero basis that there is a kind of malpractice because there is no ground to justify that there is. And I think that, I don't know whether an European body could solve this, because I think even to evidence the malpractice will be also a challenge. So, I mean, I don't say that it's good or bad idea to have a pan-European body, but I mean the countries that have less developed research integrity policies, they have these issues.
Yeah. So I think about the language issue, that's of course in Europe probably an issue, but I would think that, you know, such a body would have also local people from the country. So I think the language issue might be, you know, not important anymore if you have also, you know, people from the local reality. And regarding the procedures of the, you know, as you just mentioned, I think, you know, the aim of having such a body would be to, you know, to develop. I mean, we already have in different European countries, there are already some procedures out there, and so I think we could come up with a sort of a, you know, an agreed upon set of procedures that they could be used in all countries, and in particular in countries where there's no national guidelines or there's no national codes of conduct. We still have some countries like this. This having such a body would actually be extremely useful, and you know, the expertise of many of the people in Europe, they already deal with these issues at different level. I just mentioned some of the international organizations that are already up there. And this is why I thought, you know, if we all these organizations who are already dealing with these issues, if we all work together to create a European level, a body at European level, I mean, the expertise would be there already. I think that's, you know, it would of course require some work and some efforts, but I am sure, I mean, we have the expertise already there. And I mean, such a body, particularly an advisory body, I think would be the easiest thing to put together or to implement, would be particularly useful for countries where there are still not systems in place. So I don't know if I'm responding to your comment, but
yeah, I get your observations. I see the goal that you want to achieve, but the fact is that the countries that don't have such a research integrity system, because there's a reason they don't have them. I mean, they don't want to have them. And this is kind of an obstacle. As I mean, what I face in my country, we have I wouldn't call this a research integrity system, but some fragments of this, and to complement it with other missing components. This is a huge rejection of all of that.
Yeah, sure.
So,
yeah, I think that, this is why I think that, if funders, national funders, and even DC, which is the biggest funder in Europe, would play a role in that. They could even force institutions who want to apply for their funding to use such a body, and to get advice on such a body on how to create structures locally. That would have a value for sure. And also the existence of an external body. And we were thinking about it in particular if there was an international or European investigative body. If this body received an allegation that is related to a local university in a country where there's no structures and no policies, this might put the university under pressure, knowing that there's an international body who has, that's looking at them and wants to have some, input. Maybe this would bring those places where there's not much interest in dealing with these issues to actually do that.
Yeah, it might work, but I mean, in some countries, as I said, with less developed research integrity systems, or that has no research integrity systems, it might work not as on a recommendatory level, but also if it is obligatory. And European Commission doesn't want to be obligatory. And that's an issue.
Yeah, no, exactly. This is the problem. And we had a person from the European Commission in the group. And of course, this was obvious that they didn't want to do that. And yeah, it is a shame because, I mean, funders have a huge, a huge potential role to play here. And yeah, so that would be, of course, something valuable. And we are, but we are in discussion. We will be in discussion with the European Commission. And we were already in the past, and we will see. I mean, we also think that mandate and training is something that could be done. As a funder, we are a very small funder, but we mandate that our fellows take research integrity training. If they don't do that, they don't get our funding. And so they do. Some of them do it quickly because they don't care, but some of them come back to us saying, "Oh, thank you. This is really." We also provide them with a course, an online course to do that. And so, if bigger funders started to do that, maybe the culture would also change. And so, of course, big funders could play an even stronger role.
Yeah, Tom. Yeah.
Because I think what's an interesting question is that you raised: how would institutions react to kind of creating such a body? And I think that's kind of very difficult to anticipate. I guess there would be a lot of resistance if the mandate would exceed that of an advisory role. But even if it's an advisory role only, I think it's difficult to predict if either countries that do not have a national infrastructure would be supportive, because they could say, hey, we don't have anything, so there are no vested interests or so here, so we can build something, you do not replace anything. Or if the sentiment would rather be, hey, we don't have it because we don't want it, and therefore we certainly don't want it on an even higher level that is above the national one. I think that's quite difficult to anticipate, and it might be well different from country to country. And that's also the case, I think, with countries that do have national infrastructures. So are they supportive of an even higher level one, of saying, okay, we can upscale our efforts here? Or is it rather something, that creates resistance because, they might say, hey, there is no need to create something on a higher level because we do have a governance. It's very difficult to say, and there probably won't be a homogeneous reaction. That's at least my gut feeling.
No, this is it was clear during the working group. We have people from national bodies, and they were saying, we wouldn't need this. But also one of the reasons why we decided to do this study is because we, as EMBO, we have been approached by institutions who didn't know how to do investigations, and they were asking for help to support them in deciding, in doing the investigations, but also in giving them advice. And this was reaching a level where we thought, maybe we need something bigger. We need actually, and also somebody at the workshop said it, that institutions are really hungry for advice. And sometimes I'm not too sure why the reason is, but also the national bodies sometimes are not very well known by some institutions internally in a country. And so, our effort was also, to try to raise these issues. The institutions should probably do more, take on more responsibilities. The national offices, some of them are excellent. Some of them are actually not very well known by the research community. So, let's try to work together and make the efforts at European level a bit more coordinated. And it's a bit of the provocative thing, thinking about a body that would be above everything. But we also had very positive responses from, as I said, institutions who really don't know what to do. So yeah, we'll keep on, involving the community and see what the reaction is.
And there's one more question or one more opinion. Karim, would you like to? Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Katerina, and thank you, Sandra and Dick, for the great presentations. It was just two observations. The first is around harmonizing the sanctions that would be applied in the event that there is an outcome from such a body that would find, that someone had committed some kind of misconduct. And at the moment across Europe, the rules are not standardized. So in some countries, it's a criminal offense. In others, you just get fired, but you don't go to jail. You don't have a fine. Nothing happens. So I think that that's also something that really needs to be discussed around what is the suitable and fair punishment or sanction in the event that someone is found guilty, I guess. And then just a broader point, I know your talk focused on kind of the European dimension, but I thought if we think globally just for a moment, the International Science Council and UNESCO have, UNESCO of course is responsible for scientific and cultural cooperation. They have published over a number of years a lot of opinions and kind of resolutions and various documents on what they feel the role of member states should be in ensuring and enabling an environment for research that meets a number of standards, of which kind of scientific integrity is one of them. And so I just wonder, do we need to strengthen existing bodies like the International Science Council and try and use them as lobbies for more funding for this type of activity, for more emphasis in kind of global research training programs at doctoral level, more thought on the legal updates that should happen in various countries to enable this cross-border research to happen efficiently. So those are just a few thoughts that I had.
Yeah, about the international organizations that you mentioned. I mean, of course, it would be great. I think the more people are involved, the better. And of course, they have done things at international level, which are very important. Actually, in the workshop that we organized, part of this project was organized together with the OECD Global Science Forum. And they also had, for instance, they had put together guidelines a few years back now for international collaborations, scientific collaborations. And so we also involved in the project, the OECD at a certain level. Then they're interested now more on other aspects. But discussions at international level on research integrity, of course, should always happen. And yeah, so yeah, definitely. I think there was a question in the chat.
No, we have just posted, so Tom was so kind as to publish your report. So everybody here in the, can, I will also send it to you via email. And no, in the chat, there's no more question. Yeah, Loretta, you would like?
Yeah, just one more question regarding the Dick presentations. About this linkage of research integrity, if I understood correctly, in high schools, I mean in early stage, does it link with science education or citizen science?
Did you, was your specific question, does it link with the science education?
Science education, citizen science.
So my perception, again from the sidelines, is it's complementary to, it's not integrated with, and but the premise was at the outset to try and touch high school students with the importance of all that's embraced by science, integrity, ethics, and human, and all to expose kids to that at an early age, and almost on the level of physics and chemistry and biology, to be able to not just I think Katarina can correct me. I think the original aspiration was thinking of high school kids that are keeners and going on a scientific path, but the experience now is pointed to the opportunity to touch all high school students with the awareness of what underpins good science and how it affects us in a broader sense in society. I wonder if I could make just a couple of comments on Sandra's. I couldn't help it from my own experience. First of all, just Karim's comments about the International Science Council and UNESCO. I've been active in both those organizations, and always, I guess I've been indoctrinated, and I'm an enthusiast for what they do and the roles that they can play. But as I was thinking about it, I don't think Sandra's aspirations for a more coherent European entity, and that is at odds with anything that UNESCO and the International Science Council would do. I think that having an entity like that would bolster the arguments that they would make at the International Science Council for global coherence. And of course, we have the World Council on Research Integrity. The other point was, in my personal experience, and I came into this thinking, I haven't had all that much experience in research integrity investigations, but I also was responsible for harassment in the workplace investigations, allegations of wrongdoing, investigations of conflict of interest independent of the science and the organization. And we do have in Canada a national body, integrity commissioner, and a tribunal and independent investigations. It was a function of whistleblower legislation on a generic thing, and so we have a model there. And I was not as big. I was not a big fan of it, and the reason was that as soon as things were put into that arena of the national tribunal investigative body, and that they took on this super amplified importance, and things that were, somebody had made an unwise decision in their jobs and workplace where you might handle it, through normal disciplinary procedures, all became these grand causes. So and then when I thought about that, I realized the two things whenever I was involved in research integrity investigations or chairing committees and things like that. And we're an organization I still use we, that's kind of charming. It's a 4,000 employees. We have another 1,000 guest workers. It's $1 billion Canadian budget plus. So it's a healthy organization, but we could always use more resources. Like, it was just amazing how you get science integrity or research integrity allocation, and it might look like it's in construction research, but it's really to do with some sophisticated form of information technology and something below AI or something below the surface where you need a specialized expertise. Plus, you also and the management of the organization, rightly or wrongly, always wanted to distance themselves from these things. Okay, if we can send this to an outside investigator or body that can pronounce on that, then we're whatever the decision is, we can wash our hands of it. So there's a seduction in that way. For my level, tier or two down the food chain, my attention, and also related to the national tribunal thing, was, I would say 90% of the research integrity cases I got involved in were really people just making unwise decisions at an early stage in their career and really needed more mentoring and some, guidance on what we were talking about was in the presentation about quality of research as opposed to egregious efforts to try and to scam the system and that. And that was where it's challenging, because you don't want to appear to be sweeping something under the rug or downplaying the seriousness of an issue, but you don't want to destroy somebody's career on that context. So I don't know. Good luck with that. Have fun, Europeans. I don't know what the answer is.
But that's why, I think, what I said before, it would have to be clarified what kind of breaches or violations of research integrity such a body would deal with. Of course, it wouldn't deal with any petty little thing, but I don't know, we see that, and I don't know if you follow Retraction Watch and this kind of blogs, there are a lot of problems out there. And, we think that something more than what's happening now should happen. And I don't know, we think that coordinating resources would give a signal to the scientific community that things are taken seriously, and that things can always just happen and no consequences are taken. Because I think, Karim, you were mentioning consequences from investigations. Very often nothing happens really. I mean, this is really the reality. And so I don't know, we think that, having a European, having the European community saying, okay, we get together and we want to do something more than what's happening now. And I'm not only talking about investigations, but really an advisory body, something, or an advisory function would give the right message also to the public that, European research is united, and is united also in trying to limit, violations of research integrity, which we know happen quite often. I'm not talking about falsification only, but we see that we know the surveys of researchers, and we know, what the percentages are is a bit worrying sometimes. And so I don't know. And also we say it in the report that institutions should take things a bit more seriously, and maybe we need something more than just institutions to tackle these issues.
We are just joined by our coordinator, Julia. You're just joining us in the very interesting part of our dialogue. So Sandra has just presented their very, very interesting and very important report on governance and research integrity. And we have just tackled the question what institution would think about governance structure and advisory board, international advisory board. In the background, you can hear my sons. I'm sorry for this, but it's Friday afternoon. Impossible to get them with somebody else. There was something I wanted especially to answer to Loretta. That was your question about citizen education, or what we meant about education in the high school. And Dick, you asked me if you understood this correctly, and I just wanted to tell you, yes, exactly. We saw it more like a citizen education, and in fact, it was Julia who came up with citizen education, or our focus on citizen education. So not science education as such, but really more broader, like citizen education. And that leads me, Sandra, to another question, and you mentioned it because one of your questions was if such an advisory body should only focus on one discipline or more. And you know that I'm a lawyer. My background is social science or humanities. And of course, we learn a lot by you. But if we had such an advisory body, international or European advisory body, I think we would feel quite uncomfortable. And I think it would be difficult for us that I think we have more the focus on academic integrity than on, yeah, so maybe it could be difficult for us to speak or to be able to feel identified in an advisory body. Did you have these discussions as well?
Yeah, I mean, we were looking at things mostly from the life sciences view, because this is our expertise. But I mean, there are already advisory bodies like in Canada, which are, or in the, yeah, in Canada. And also, I believe also the Austrian agency, it's actually, they focus on all disciplines. Yeah, so they're not only focused on one discipline. And of course, you have to have experts in, you know, in the humanities or social sciences, and then in other disciplines. But, you know, some of the issues are the same. You know, I always repeat, like omitting outliers. This is something that it's true in all disciplines. Yeah, not supervising properly lab members or members of a group. There are some things that are actually universal. And then of course, there are also specific, you know, discipline-specific problems also in authorship issues, for instance. This is, you know, discipline-specific. But I don't think that this is impossible. And we see that there are some agencies, national agencies, that are multidisciplinary, yeah. And there was a question that I wanted to ask you, actually, Katharina and Dick probably, for the project Path to Integrity. When the C grant is over, where will it be hosted? Because that would be also, I was thinking, that would be excellent for a sort of a European place where you could actually, you know, and keep it updated and keep it moving, because it's a great, I mean, I looked at the cards and the books for the trainers. They are really fantastic resources.
Sandra, this is, sorry, if I may, yeah, because this is, I was thinking, how can I bring in Julia in this discussion now? And I think this is the perfect question for Julia. Dick, if I may. Yeah, Julia, would you like to jump in here?
That was going to be my answer. I was going to say, I'm glad Julia joined us at this point.
Good.
So hello to everybody, and sorry, I was in another meeting, but I just jumped in so I could see you. And hello. To the question, yes, that would be wonderful, Sandra. So actually, it's not just Path to Integrity who is facing this problem. Like we like parallel to Path to Integrity, we have 2 or 3 other Horizon 2020 projects who are almost working in the same direction, not the same field, but same direction. And we are all facing the same problem. So we have this really good impact in 3 to 4 years. And after these 3-4 years, we're like on stop. Yeah. So where does it go? Of course, if you look back, you can see that some projects handled it in a quite good way, in the sense of one project, for example, is using now the Helsinki University server and put everything there. So it's still, the material is still public and open. But that's not an easy way. And this way is I would say it's a specialty, because this person is at the University of Helsinki and the university said yes. So you see my university in the back. Actually, I'm not sure if they would say yes if I asked them, because of like, there are different issues, you all know. So and actually this displays how scattered the European landscape is. We do have these European projects, but and we do have a European policy direction, yeah, but we do not have structures where we can go to, and this is making it really difficult. Yeah.
Tom, I think you wanted to say something, or was it?
No, yes, I can, going back a bit. Well, I mean, I can add something here from perspective of other projects, because I think the sustainability issue is, as Julia said, that's not only an issue Path to Integrity faces, but also the other integrity related projects like Integrity, Virtue, Entire, well, and Entire has created the Embassy of Good Science, which is a free wiki platform. So it should be technologically sustainable. And if it generates enough followers, this could at least be one of the outlets that helps making some of the project or parts of the project sustainable. But that's, of course, like, as always is the case, it needs support from the community. So it will, just creating an infrastructure that is technologically sustainable is certainly not sufficient if people do not stay engaged. And so community building, I think, is always an issue that all these projects have to address in one way or another. That's true for Path to Integrity, for Virtue, for tons of other projects as well. I think that's also why these dissemination events here are important. It also would, of course, be great to have more people being involved here. What I wanted to ask before, or actually two things, is which are a bit related to what EMBO does and to the agenda of Path to Integrity. One thing is, Sandra, you mentioned that all researchers funded by EMBO do have to take a research integrity course, and that the feedback on that is sometimes positive, sometimes people just don't care too much about it. I'd like to just know a bit more about the kind of feedback. What is it that people do like? What do they consider beneficial? And what is it that they see as rather superfluous? So just to get a bit more detailed information here. And a second issue regarding your presentation. Now you've published this report, you presented, what's the next step? So does EMBO actually advocate creating a pan-European body? If so, how do you plan to do so? Who are your allies? So what are the next steps? I'd just like to learn a bit more about that.
So I'll reply first on about the training, your question about the training that we're doing. So we're using the APGEUM program. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. And we mandated, so our fellows have to take it. And so what they like, what they don't like, some of them, a lot of them say that it's too long. But it's like, the APGEUM guys say that it's 6 hours long. It's probably a bit longer. And we tell them that they don't have to take it in one session. They actually can split it up in different sessions. So, so this is one comment that we get very often. Sometimes people say, we're already busy. We have to do a lot of things that are mandated. And this is just another thing that we have to do. But many people are very happy, and they are very grateful. They come back to us and say, this has opened my eyes. I had never thought about the issues in this way. And this will help me being a better researcher. So we really have a wide variety of reactions, but we have decided that, we think it's important that all our fellows are are exposed to the issues that are discussed. And we find that the course actually very, very, very good. And so, we think that they have to do it. It doesn't matter what they think, it's part of their training as fellows of EMBO. And what did I want to say? It will come back to me later. But yeah, we also provide it to our members. They don't have to take it, but we provide it to them. And yeah, no, what I wanted to say also that we actually, where EMBO was part, this was before my times at EMBO, was part of the development group that developed the APGEUM course actually. And there were, mainly American universities and then EMBO basically. And so we did that because we realized that our fellows, they don't work in our premises. We don't have labs. So we pay them to do their research at institutes all over Europe and outside of Europe. But they didn't receive any kind of instructions or training from the institutes. And so we thought, we want to be responsible. We want them to be exposed to this kind of training. So we are paying for them to take the course for free. We provide it for them for free. And so this is again, the fact that, we didn't see, or we still don't see much coming from the institutes. And so, to fill the gap, we have decided to impose this. But, so this is a comment that we have in the report as well. And yeah, and then, sorry, your second question was about, what was it again?
the next steps? So do you advocate for this pan-European body, and if so, how do you do so? What is it that you have in mind? What's your vision?
Yeah, so what we wanted, or what we'll do, we want to talk to the EC a lot. We already have some contacts there, and see, you know, really what the reaction is, and if we can move something there. And also our aim is to talk to, you know, all the organizations that we already talked with NRIO. They are, of course, you know, they have their own national bodies. I don't think they're too engaged, but they were thinking that in some, in a way, it could be useful for investigations of cross-border cases. Yeah. And so we just want to talk to the other organizations, international European organizations out there, to see what they think. Because also, you know, if then we decided that we don't need or we don't want this body, at least maybe we could in any way, you know, try to coordinate things a bit more. And, you know, there are already EC projects like the, what is it called? The SOAP for RI project, funded by Horizon 2020, that is trying to create guidelines, you know, coordinated guidelines or standardized guidelines for research performing organization and funding organization. So there are already activities out there going towards the same goal. And so it would be nice to talk to, you know, everybody involved in this and try to come up with something more efficient than what we have now. So these are our next steps to talk to people. Of course, we will also want to talk to institutes, because research institutes should be involved in the discussions. And unfortunately, usually we visit the institutes. You know, we've been visiting them doing workshops on research integrity. And we were going to Lithuania actually before Christmas, but this was stopped by the pandemic. So we can't really go there. We want to do this in person. So we will restart these rounds of institutes in Europe whenever we can travel again. And because the institute should be involved, otherwise all the discussions are always done at policy level, but then the institutes are not really taking on any discussion. So this is what the next steps will be. Everything is a bit slower now, but we'll get to that.
Well, we have here many activists in the room, so you can rely on us whenever we can help you. Just give us a shout. Yeah. Sure. Okay, I'm now watching at the time. We are half an hour over. That means it was very, 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 very interesting, very inspiring. And I just would like to thank you so much, Sandra, for your very interesting presentation and your great report and all the insights. And there's still a lot to do. I think we all got the message. And Dick as well, thank you very much for your insights and for joining us from Canada early in the morning. That's very kind of you. And yeah, but this is a dialogue, and we want to continue this dialogue. So I would like to invite everybody here in the room to continue and to do networking with us, with everybody who's here in the room. And nothing else from my side. Sandra, is there anything, last word you would like to, the last word of Friday evening or Friday afternoon that you want to send us to the weekend?
Yeah, no, thank you, Katharina, to give me the opportunity to talk about our report in these times of impossibility to do it in another way. And no, I hope that we will be in touch, and we will definitely try to collaborate more. You know, there are so many actors in Europe who are trying to do something to improve the situation, and we'll have to stay in touch and see what else we can do. And Dick, we hope that, you know, from Canada, you have a lot of experience in this sector. So yeah, hopefully there will be more discussions.
Happy to.
One last word from Canada, Dick. What do you want to wish us for the? Well,
just thank you for inviting me to take part. But I did want to say hi to Tom and Oliver and Aria, the people from Path to Integrity that I see online. Just thanks for joining.
Thank you very much. Julia, do you want also, as our coordinator,
it's a bit different.
to close our fantastic dialogue of today?
I can do that. So yes, thank you. At least I saw you, and I could get an impression. But I will talk to Katharina, and she will put me in place what happened today. And actually, I do look forward to get the dialogue intensively running in Europe. I do think we are all on a good way, but we have to connect the different fields and the different institutions which are now working on the topic, so that we can get an amended, I would say an amended plan. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a general one, but it has to be somehow amended. Yeah, that's what I am looking for. And thank you for taking part. And I hope please all stay safe. It's really a difficult time for all of us. And yes, I hope you have a good weekend now and enjoy the life.
Thank you very much. See you soon.